Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Easy One Bowl Hollandaise. That's right, it's true. This new method I've developed for making Hollandaise only requires one bowl and is by far the easiest method I've ever used. And by the way, I'm not talking physically easier, I'm talking mentally easier. Because what you're about to see requires just as much whisking and time as the traditional method, but we've eliminated all those variables that usually mess people up. In fact, all we're going to do here is dump everything into a bowl and whisk it over low heat until we have Hollandaise. And I realize that might sound a little far-fetched, but check it out, it totally works. So we're going to start by tossing one large egg yolk into a stainless steel bowl. And usually we cook the egg yolk first, and then complete the sauce by whisking in hot melted butter. But not with this technique. Like I said, we're just going to dump everything into the bowl, including our cold butter, which has been cubed up. We'll just add that right to the raw yolk. And yeah, somewhere a culinary instructor just spit out their coffee. But anyway, we're going to continue on adding the rest of the ingredients, which includes a nice big pinch of salt, as well as a little bit of cayenne. Or you could use a few drips of hot sauce here. That's up to you. You are the Richard Blaze of your Hollandaise, so you decide. But a little bit of heat is highly recommended. And then we're going to finish up with a couple liquid ingredients, which really are the secret to making this technique work. We're going to add a splash of cold fresh water, just a couple tablespoons, as well as a tablespoon of freshly squeezed lemon juice. And then what we'll do once we have all our ingredients in this bowl is we'll take a whisk and give it a little mix. Which reminds me, I'm making the smallest batch possible, just using one egg yolk. But if you're going to scale this up for a bigger batch, I'd probably mix everything first and then add the butter cubes last, just so it's a little easier. Here it didn't matter. And then all we're going to do is take this over to the stove, where we are going to cook this over low heat, stirring pretty much continually, until about 10 or 15 minutes later, we have Hollandaise. So we're going to whisk with one hand, while we carefully hold the bowl with a towel in the other. And one pro tip, do not let that towel catch on fire. That will not fill your brunch guests with confidence, so be careful. But anyway, we're going to continue to cook that over low heat, whisking pretty much the whole time. I mean, you can take a couple second breaks, but this is not something you can just let sit over the heat. And at the beginning here, not a lot's going to happen. That butter's going to kind of slowly melt into the mixture, but just keep cooking and stirring. And you'll see after a few minutes, it'll start to get sort of foamy and start to thicken up a little bit. And all we're going to do is simply continue until it's as thick as we want. And I guess part of that is what you're going to serve this on. See, we could stop right about here, since that's looking pretty good. What we have right here would be just about perfect for Eggs Benedict. But since I'm going to put this over some asparagus, I want it a little thicker. So I cooked mine for another minute or two, until it looked like this. Check it out. Just so beautifully thick and luxurious. In fact, let me grab a spoon so we can get a better look. And by the way, I didn't show it, but of course you're going to taste this for seasoning before you serve it up. That's just common sense. So I did give mine a taste off camera, and it was perfect. Which means we can serve this up, in my case on some gorgeous pan-roasted asparagus. And by the way, as with all Hollandaise sauces, if you're not going to use this right away, you got to keep it warm on the back of the stove. Just cover it with foil and leave it somewhere warm. It'll be fine. And if you're doing this at home, you could just dump over that sauce. See, what I'm doing is trying to make it look sexy for the picture, which didn't really work, but I tried. And then I finished that up with an extra touch of cayenne, and that's it. Our easy one-bowl Hollandaise is ready to enjoy. And I'm not exactly sure why I have a fork and knife here, since according to those etiquette people, it is totally appropriate to eat asparagus with your fingers. Yes, even in a restaurant. So let me grab one and try this out. And forget about what method we used. That is just one perfect Hollandaise. I mean, so often you run across these shortcut methods that are easier, but do not give you the same results as the classic methods. And yet here, not only was the technique much simpler and more foolproof, but the results are as good, if not better, than the classic method. And even though I didn't need that fork to eat this, I will use it to give you one last look here at that perfect texture. For me, a perfectly made Hollandaise has to be thick and yet at the same time light, which is not always the case. But here, totally the case. So I just absolutely love how this comes out. I think just a genius way to make what can be a problematic sauce. And no, I didn't just call myself a genius. I said the technique is genius. Although I did come up with this technique. So I will let you draw your own conclusions. But regardless, I really do hope you give this a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.